Curious George by H.A. Rey. Curious George, getting into trouble like he does best. Curious George by H.A. Rey. This book belongs to someone named Dion. Looks like someone wrote in the library book, naughty, naughty. This is George. He lived in Africa. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. See him swinging? He's having such a good time with the butterflies. One day, George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. The man saw George too. What a nice little monkey, he thought. I'd like to take him home with me. He put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from the tree to look at the large yellow hat. Ooh! The hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. He picked it up and put it on. Uh-oh, what's going to happen next? The hat covered George's head, and he couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag, and George was caught. Oh no, poor George. He's probably so scared. Poor little guy. Ooh, look at the water, it's so blue. The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat, and a sailor rowed them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but he was still a little curious. Aww. Poor little George. Look, there's little fish in the water. That's so pretty. Look at the water, it's so blue. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on a little stool, and the man said, "George, I'm going to take you to a big zoo in a big city. You will like it there. Now run along and play, but don't get into trouble." The man obviously doesn't know George yet. George promised to be good, of course, but it's easy for little monkeys to forget. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious. Finally, he had to try. It looked easy, but... Uh-oh. Oh, what happened? First this, and then this. Uh-oh. Where's George? The sailors looked and looked. At last they saw him struggling in the water and almost all tired out. Uh-oh. That crazy little monkey, how'd he get down there? Man overboard, the sailors cried as they threw him a lifeboat. George caught it and held on. At last he was safe on board. Oh my goodness. Boy, he's a lucky little monkey to get saved like that. After that, George was more careful. He was more careful to be a good monkey until, at last, the long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat walked off the ship onto the shore and on into the city to the man's house. Ooh, big adventures for George. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. Look at George. That's just crazy right there. Nice food. Uh-oh, look at his jammies. It's a new world for George. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. And he's acclimating just fine, I think. Acclimating means getting used to something. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, what fun. Boy, he's a smart little monkey, isn't he? Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, George had telephoned the fire station. The firemen rushed to the telephone. Hello, hello, they said, but there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Uh-oh, doing their job, taking care of people and keeping people safe. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The firemen jumped on the fire engines and on to the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong. Everyone out of the way. Hurry, hurry. Coming through. The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. No fire, only a naughty little monkey. Oh, catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire. And a thin fireman caught one arm and a fat fireman caught the other. You fooled the fire department, they said. We'll have to shut you up where you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him up in a prison. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Poor George. It was just a mistake. George wanted to get out so bad. He climbed up to the window to try the bars. Just then the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The man was. The bed tipped up and the watchman fell over. And quick as lightning, George ran out through the open door. Oh! He hurried through the building and out onto the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked onto the telephone wires. Quickly and quietly over the guard's head, George walked away. He was free. I'm free, he said. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself. But oh, I know what's going to happen. Do you know what's going to happen? I think you do. Yes. Instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. In an instant, the wind whisked them all away, and with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Uh-oh. What's going to happen to him now? He's got an exciting life. Up, up he sailed, higher and higher. The houses looked like toy houses. Ooh! And the people like little dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. My goodness. At first the wind blew in great gusts. Then it quieted. Finally it stopped blowing altogether. And George was very tired. Down, down he went and bump on the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. The traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do, and then he heard someone call, "George?" He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. Look at those colors. They're so bright and beautiful. George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. Then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons, and then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last away they went. Well, I think George is lucky to have a friend. Very lucky. To the zoo. What a nice place for George to live. Look at that. He's so happy. He even gets to keep his red balloon. The end. The end.